Please be aware, in this podcast series we talk about all areas of safeguarding, which some people may find upsetting. So please make sure you're okay listening to today's topic. Be mindful of those around you, such as children, that you might not want to listen in. Hi, I'm SSS Safeguarding Director Sam Preston.
And I'm former head teacher and content author Sara Spinks.
So today we're looking at the dangers of a worrying trend, that is teenagers using spice in vapes. So let's start by talking, I think probably best to start talking about vaping really in general and just sort of set the scene. So over really a relatively short period of time, vaping, it has become, a really popular alternative to traditional tobacco smoking. And vaping's recognised as a tool to help those addicted to cigarettes. And that's been, way back in, 2015, I think, really promoted by that public health message, switch to vape. And I remember during that campaign, they were stating that vaping was 95% safer than smoking cigarettes, wasn't it?
Yeah, but this message can be construed as somewhat misleading. Although less harmful than cigarette smoking, it doesn't clearly identify that vaping may also be harmful to health.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's now recognised by public health professionals. I think worryingly though, although it's illegal in the UK to sell vapes to young people under the age of 18, we know, children are vaping. There was a recent survey by ASH that found that over 20% of children aged 11 to 17 had tried vaping. And with a trend of children experimenting with vaping, that's growing by 50% year on year.
Wow, that's really worrying, that trajectory. I know from conversations with colleagues and my own experience as a head teacher, that in addition to their role in promoting health to guide behaviour, schools are now having to take direct action, really, to combat vaping use. I certainly had to. And things like installing vape alarms are actually becoming more commonplace to try and deter and, curb the use of vapes on school sites.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I know head teachers that are having to look at that. I think for me, though, what is really additionally worrying about the practice is adding other substances to vape liquids, and that's what we're seeing. So both in pre-packaged or manually adding substances, there's a trend particularly of adding spice, which is a form of man-made synthetic cannabinoids to vapes.
Yeah, so I understand that, spice mimics the effects of, and I'm going to try and say this, so if I make a mess, I do apologise, tetrahydrocannabinol, which apparently is THC.
Yeah.
And that's the active ingredient in cannabis, I think.
Yeah. So THCs, they are used under strict medical supervision, and that they do have a purpose. But what we are talking about is an illegal form that's sold under various names. You might hear it described as K2 or herbal incense, and it's often promoted as a legal high.
So how does that affect the user? What, or, for a better term, what do they get out of using it, do you think?
Well, we're talking about psychoactive effects. That's so things like euphoria, relaxation, but it does also distort perception. The exact effects, they can vary significantly between users and also depend on the specific blend of chemicals used. So whilst spice might appear appealing as an alternative to marijuana, it does carry significant risks, including, as I've said, that unpredictable potency, severe side effects, and addiction from long-term use.
So what about teenagers? What are their specific risks?
Well, there are significant risks for teenagers, and really we're talking about things like, for instance, brain development. So the teenage years, they're crucial for brain development. So the use of substances like spice can interfere with normal neurological growth and potentially affect cognitive abilities, decision making. and emotional regulation in adolescence. There's also increased vulnerability. Teenagers may be more susceptible to the unpredictable potency and effects of spice, while adults may have more experience managing psychoactive substances. Teens often lack the maturity to handle powerful drugs, and that can lead, to greater instances of negative effects like anxiety or panic attacks.
And I suppose that leads me to think, what's that impact, do you think, on their mental health, really?
Yeah, well, spice has been linked to heightened risks of mental health issues, including anxiety, depression, and psychosis.
Yeah, so for teenagers who may already be navigating emotional turbulence, spice, I suppose, could exacerbate those challenges, couldn't it?
Yeah, it really could. And it could lead to longer term psychological consequences. There's also addiction and dependency. Teenagers who use spice may find themselves developing a dependency, experiencing withdrawal symptoms, and engaging in risky behaviours to obtain the substance. There's also physical risks too. The use of spice has been linked to really quite severe health complications, things like heart problems, seizures, and even fatalities.
So I'm also guessing that teenagers won't think about the legal consequences, the repercussion of being caught in possession of spice. And I suppose they won't always understand the impact of gaining a criminal record, for example, or how that could impact their future educational and career opportunities.
Absolutely. So while spice may seem like an enticing option for some teenagers seeking relaxation or euphoria, the dangers inherent in its use, they are profound. And from neurological impacts to mental health crises, the risks far outweigh any perceived benefits. So I guess the reason I wanted to cover this today was just really to highlight, as this trend emerges, it is absolutely essential for drug and substance misuse education, not only to share the information, but to engage teenagers in discussion to enable them to make informed decisions about vaping in general and the risks involved with spice use.